Okay.
You can tell that we order very different things when we go to, like... Sorry.
So I made my lunch order just now.
Yeah.
Because my family was like, what do you want from lunch from Wendy's? I should probably introduce myself before we get into this. Hi, my name is Caleb. Welcome back to Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I'm one of your hosts. Why are they calling me back?
Just go and answer the call, man. Hi, I'm Seth. I talk Star Wars with this man. He's gonna take a call real quick.
Yes, we're live. What do you need? Okay, just get me a regular one. It's on their menu on the website, so I was just going off that.
Oh my god. Are you okay?
Yes. Also, you can scoot in closer. I'm not dying.
No, I refuse. Nah, actually, I will. Because we have the same thing that happens every time we shoot in here, and then I'm way off to the side.
Yeah. So you introduced yourself. I introduced myself. I think now we can get into this. So my dogs are back there.
Yeah.
We had to film here today because Scotty needed the studio because he got a bunch of toys in, so he needs the space to work on getting his toys all figured out because he has a toy shop.
Yeah, he sells toys for a living.
As one of his jobs. One of his many things that he does.
He does a lot.
Including a comic book that Kickstarter just ended.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually contributed to it, so
all right.
We'll have a copy of it. I actually have copies of the first issue over here. Try to get the stuff off top of it for me. Just hold it so I don't knock them over. Thank you. This is one of his earlier ones. First, actually, Steampunk Digest. It's a bunch of like short story collection, like you know how comics have their short stories. Way, it's that. And then this is Chronicles of Limbo. It's about a Native American vampire who is in charge of keeping an eye on a baby who has supernatural powers that include like teleporting and all that good shit. It's really good. This is the first issue though. But if you had done the Kickstarter, which I think we promoted when it first started, you could have gotten issues 1 and 2 together. I got issue 2 because I already have issue 1. But I got it physically because you can also get them digitally. But I like having physical comics when I can. So he needed the studio. So we're here today.
That's why we're here.
And then I got a phone call from my parents trying to figure out lunch. They don't have things I want.
Well, yeah.
It was Wendy's, and they don't have Dave Soda, which nobody understands Dave Soda except me, apparently. Like, you were like, huh, even though you used to go to Wendy's that was one of our main places when we go from the studio, because there's a Wendy's, like, right outside.
And then, like, they fucked up my order 3 different times, and I was like, fuck this.
Not
on the same day. If it had been on the same day, I would have lost my mind.
It also didn't help that, like, most of the time, there was that one time where we were in the line, and they weren't even open, even though they should have been open. But that was... I also have a McDonald's I'm never going to again, because, like, McDonald's... Okay, this is a rant for the McDonald's app, more than it is for the McDonald's.
Yeah.
McDonald's app. I like using you, because I like to order my food ahead of time. Because I like to be able to show up, food, maybe an extra 10 minutes to get it prepped. Food's pretty much ready by the time I get there. I like doing that. Also, the McDonald's app has a pretty good point reward system, although the one complaint is I wish I could, and it's something my dad hates about it and prefers the Chick-fil-A app for, which is being able to do more than one reward at a time. McDonald's does not let you. You only get one reward that you can use on your points per order. Chick-fil-A lets you use as many of your points as you want. That's something McDonald's should look into. But the other thing
Yeah.
Get the opening times correct for your stores. Cause it said that I couldn't do entry at until 7. No, till 6. Because and then I knew it was 6 because I had to be at work at 7. So but the app also said that the drive-through was at 5:30. Because sometimes the drive-through is 24-hour compared to the like sometimes drive-through opens before the the indoor of McDonald's or fast food restaurant, right? Nope, they just don't open until 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I've already ordered through the app. And it also is not great because the app says for getting, and this is where I got mad at the restaurant, and not at corporate level. So the corporate level on the app says that you go to, if you want a refund, you talk to the store, because they don't do refunds through the app, which also is a dumb thing for your app, by the way.
Yeah.
You should be able to process a refund through the app, in my opinion. So I asked, since I was already at the drive-thru, and I knew about this system before because I've done it before. I talked to the person at the drive-thru and was like, "Hey, can I get a refund then? Since I've been sitting here for 20 minutes, and then you guys just now tell me that I can't get my food until 6, and I don't have time to wait." Because at this point it's like 5:45, and I have an hour drive to get to work, just to kind of give y'all an idea of the commute I do for work. They said, well, no, you have to do it through the app. And I'm like, no, that's not correct. And then they get a manager for me, and the manager does the same stuff. And I'm just like, okay, bye. Yeah. Like, I got a little heated. I don't feel good about how heated I got, because I normally don't like to get angry at, like, the actual, like, small employee, like the regular employees. I don't like to get mad at the regular employees, because I have worked that type of stuff. You have worked that type. Like, we understand. Don't get mad at the small employees. It's the corporate shit that's like frustrating.
Have not worked in fast food. But what I normally do is retail.
But you do retail, which is.
But Jesus Christ.
You work retail, so you understand the same level. It's the same idea. Retail and fast food. It's, if you've ever worked retail or fast food, you understand it.
Customer service.
It's not. Horrible. Like, it's not on the fault of the retail worker.
God, I have to go to work later today.
Like, it's not on the fault of the retail worker. It's the corporate level. And that's, and so, McDonald's app, get your shit together.
Yeah. It helps when your system is actually useful.
Yeah. Like your system works for the most part. The only things I'd say is make sure you got your restaurant times right, which I don't know how it's that hard for corporate to get that right. And then, because they should be on top of that. All you have to do is call your restaurant and go, hey, when do you open? When do you close? That's simple. Second is make it to where I can use more than one reward.
Yeah.
If I've got the points, let me spend the points. Because I'm probably still going to spend money on top of spending those points. Because I also have to spend money to get more points. So that's been my restaurant, like my food rant. So normally we start the show by talking about our week so far and what outside of Star Wars we've been up to. I think that's been the start of that already.
Yeah.
Although that was like a couple weeks ago, the McDonald's thing. So this week, not too much different. I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 still. I'm on Act 3 now for my main run. So I'm now at the city of Baldur's Gate. Although I think my computer still cannot handle being at Worms Crossing.
Can't take it.
Because we got there yesterday, and then I started to see things, like, just as I'm approaching Worms Crossing, like the city just outside, like, Baldur's Gate, like the city leading up to Baldur's Gate. Because you got Worms Crossing, then you have Baldur's Gate itself. And you have to go through Worms Crossing to get to Baldur's Gate. You have to go there anyways because of spoiler stuff that I won't talk about. even with the spoiler warning, I
Yeah.
think Act 3 is still a off-limits thing to talk about for a lot of... I've noticed a lot of content creators still don't talk about Act 3 yet. Especially since today, the PS5 version just came out, which means now we've got an even wider audience playing the game, so I think even more so, don't talk about Act 3 yet. Give them at least a week or two to play it. But yeah, no, when I got to Worms Crossing, it started sputtering. Like you could see characters going in and out.
Oh no.
And I was just like, oh no, it's about to go down. And of course, I'm not on mic because I haven't been on mic for the past few Let's Plays of it because I've kind of just hooked up my laptop to the TV and kind of just sit back and relax in the living room playing it. That or I've been streaming while at my day job because my day job doesn't care if I stream. As long as I get day job stuff done at the same time. So I saw it flickering and then I'm like, oh no, you're about to go down, aren't you? And sure enough, down it goes. That's okay though. I'd been already streaming for like almost 4 hours, so I was just like, you know what? Perfect time to end the stream. Fine. It's fine. But yeah. But now that it's on PS5, which I had already pre-ordered as well, which means I can start playing it on PS5 now. Because the PS5 one, you still get the 3 days early, the 72 hours.
I see.
PC one, they didn't do that because they already released it earlier than they were going to. But hey, Jennifer.
Hey, hi, Mom.
I'm never sure if I should say Mrs. Brantley or Jennifer.
Yeah. I understand. You're in a bit of an awkward situation here.
But I'm also an adult, so it's like when you're an adult, you're supposed to be able to
address other adults by their first name, but also, like, this is someone who is definitely older than you and a parent to one of your friends. So it's like, how do you want to address this?
And I think she said I think we've had this conversation of it's fine.
Yeah.
But, like, it's still, like, we also live in the South, so it's also the Southern tradition to still be respectful.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, like, you gotta kind of, like, rip away from sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially since I'm not I'm not an entire, like, we were talking about this on the ride here. Like, I'm not entirely a Southerner.
Like, you've gone pretty far north on occasion.
Well, I was also born in the North. I was born in the North, but I lived most of my life here. But I've also lived in multiple other states, a lot of them being northern. So it's like culture clashing.
Yeah. So occasionally you'll say something, I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Like, I've lived in Alaska. I've lived in West Virginia. I've lived in Connecticut, which is also where I was born. But I've also lived there. Like, because I was born there, but I didn't live there after I was born. But, like, until, like, years later.
Yeah.
And then Tennessee, I've also lived, but that was also like at those ages where you don't remember as much.
Yeah.
So, like the Mobile, Alabama, Alaska, West Virginia, and Connecticut are kind of like the big amalgamation of my life.
Unlike me, who I've mostly spent the vast majority of my life both in Alabama and Mississippi.
Which is about as southern as it gets.
Yeah. The trifecta would be Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia.
I don't know. It might be Louisiana, actually.
Maybe Louisiana.
Because if you lived in New Orleans and then you get the New Orleans accent on top of everything, then you really...
New Orleans?
Yeah, New Orleans. New Orleans. Everybody knows it's not New Orleans. It's New Orleans.
Yeah, well... fuck that. I'm not French. I can't speak French very well, so it's New Orleans.
New Orleans.
Yeah. Whole left.
Which is how you really get it wrong is if you say New Orleans.
Yeah.
Just like you don't say mobile or mobile.
Mobile.
I've heard mobile.
No, that's what you use to distract babies. You use a mobile.
But you know what I'm saying though. Like people say mobile wrong all the time. It's either gonna end up mobile or mobile, like a phone.
Yeah.
Like you got a mobile phone.
Mobile.
I've never heard that one.
Yeah, because that's the stupidest way I could think to pronounce it. Hey, you ever been to Mobile, Alabama? It's right next to Wichita, Tennessee. That's not geographically right at all.
No, it's not. It's incorrect entirely.
Uh,
That's about as far away as you can
I
get
know.
in terms of like an Alabama city in Tennessee.
Yeah, I was like, that's so stupid.
Oh.
Mm.
So, other than Baldur's Gate 3, that's
Yep.
mostly been my like.
I'm kind of finishing up the last bit of Fallout 3. Fun fact, Child of Heart, like for the little lamplight, which is where all the children are, allows you to roast the fuck out of those kids.
So, speaking of Fallout 3,
Yeah.
so I watch a lot of YouTube videos.
Mm-hmm.
Surprise, surprise. One of those is Just Call Me Kevin.
Okay.
Classic, video game player. I rewatched an older video of his where he's playing Fallout 3, but he's the baby.
The baby?
So you know how at the beginning of Fallout 3, you're a baby?
Yeah.
And you have the scenes where you're a baby?
Yeah.
And you have the scene where your Liam Neeson dad reads from Revelation because that's like one of the themes of the game.
Point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he left the vault during that scene.
Oh.
Like he did a little cheatsy doodles to get out and just play as the baby and leave the vault. And
how'd that go?
It's hilarious. And he's doing Chaotic Run. So the baby blew up Megaton.
No.
The baby doesn't know better. It's a baby. Because what? He's like, 3 when the baby scene happens?
Level up?
Yes. Because he added a mod to where he can actually look at his Pip-Boy correctly. Because otherwise it won't show up correctly.
Yeah.
Because he's got no wrist to show it the way you normally would. So instead it's a hand that's holding it. Because he got a mod for that, so that way he can fix that part. But otherwise it's just broken, and you still see the Pip-Boy, but it's all like, where does this...
What does this do?
How does this show up? Because it will eventually show up when you get to Megaton. Like, if you leave the vault before you're supposed to, you will eventually get the Pip-Boy once you've made it to Megaton. Because it's like, oh, you should have this already. Because the game is, like, trying to correct itself.
Yeah.
But he's, like, this tall, looking up to people. And he's like, man, all these creepy people are the only ones addressing me correctly. Because they, like, call him, like, kid and all that.
Yeah.
Because all the creepy characters are the ones that call you kid, not the normal people. And so it's just like, yeah, he blew up a town, and because baby doesn't know better.
Baby don't know.
But yeah, so I should forward you that video because I think you would appreciate. I mean, I like seeing game breaking stuff like that, and of course you like Fallout, so
yeah.
I like Fallout too. I'm just not as into the lore.
Yeah.
Like I like the lore, but I'm not deeply versed in it. It's not one of my primary like subjects of fiction.
It's I don't have much of a choice.
Especially right now.
At the moment, yeah.
Uh
Though they're probably Fallout and Elden Ring and the Dishonored series. Those are like the 3 things. None of which are what I would describe as pleasant experiences.
But their lore is so rich that it's still like very much a good investment.
I am like, when it comes to games, the type of person that's like, I gotta read everything.
You'll like the fact that there's a Baldur's Gate 3 achievement for reading 100 books then. I haven't gotten it yet because you're supposed to do it in a single run. So
I see.
So I haven't yet I haven't picked up enough books yet. I've been reading every book I pick up, but I have not yet achieved the achievement.
The other thing, I guess, in major news is that I shaved this week.
Yep.
Which is not a common occurrence.
It happens, but it's not often.
But it's more like once every 5 months.
Yeah.
Because I just don't care that much. I was like, I should...
Mountain Man's not working for you.
Yeah, there's a point where it's like, this is more of a pain than it's of any use.
What's really bad about your timing, though, is we're getting out of summer, which is like when you want to get rid of Mountain Man the most. We're about to go into fall.
Yeah.
Which is when
Don't worry, it'll be back in like 2 weeks.
Yeah. So yeah, that I guess that's been our
That's
weeks.
about it, yeah.
So no news this week.
Mm.
So let's go ahead and dive right into today's topic of Inquisitor: Rise of the Red Blade,
Yes.
with some spoilers ahead. So here's your warning.
Woo!
Uh,
Big spoilers.
this is also a trigger warning, as I know at some point we're going to likely discuss a moment in the book that deals with suicide. So I wanted to throw that warning out now. We will give another warning when we get closer to actually talking about that moment. But so if you want to stick around and hear the rest of our thoughts before that, because I think we'll try to save that for last, talking about that moment.
Yeah.
Because it's not a it's important to the story, but it's not a major, like,
Yeah.
it doesn't happen. It, like I was telling you when you read that, because the book also gives this warning.
Yeah.
When you read that warning, you were like, oh, it's nice that they gave that warning. I was like, yeah, it's a moment that doesn't stick around
I
very
was-
long. It's there, but
I
it
was
just
explaining, like, when you told me about it, I was like, I probably didn't need this, but if I, like, bought this book for one of my kids, I'd probably like to know beforehand.
yeah.
Although, this is by no means a children's book.
No, because it's an adult. I mean, it's
Eh.
it's one of the Penguin Random House
Yeah.
adult novels. So first thing I want to talk about is I was surprised how much we stuck in the Clone Wars era for this book. When I first heard the concept of Inquisitor: Rise of the Red Blade, like they mentioned, oh, it's going to be about an Inquisitor and them becoming an Inquisitor. I was thinking maybe a couple chapters of Clone Wars, and then then the rest would be Iskat's journey through the dark side. But I think I quickly got over the idea when I realized that that's not what we were going to do. We were going to stick with the Clone Wars for, I'd say, half the book is Clone Wars.
Yeah.
But how about you? What were you kind of expecting before reading this book?
So, I thought I didn't go in with any thoughts.
Yeah, you didn't
Head
really
empty.
have, like, you were, like, no expectations.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad, like, that, in fact, that's probably the best way to go into any sort of media, is
no thoughts, head empty,
Well,
see what happens.
more of a, yeah, but I would say more of no expectations, because if you have no expectations, you can't be disappointed. And I wasn't,
Set the bar so low they can't trip over it.
and I would say I'm not and that's not to say I was disappointed.
Yeah.
In fact, I like this book a lot.
I do. I actually really like this book.
But that's also, I also like the author. I like Delilah S. Dawson, and I like Phasma. Still want Phasma 2, and I know she also wants to write Phasma 2. So
Haven't read it.
yeah, it's on our way further down the list books, because that's you
Yeah.
know, sequel trilogy era. So
And-
it's gonna be a minute before we get there.
What?
Just thinking of how long it's gonna take to get to sequel
Yeah,
trilogy.
it might take a while.
You were saying though.
And I was like, okay, well, and then my brain was like thinking about it last night after I got done reading it. I was like, what's one of the questions this book is trying to answer? And it's like, what would make someone willingly join the Inquisitorius?
And that actually kind of goes into my next discussion point perfectly, actually. Because I knew we were going to get into the Jedi of it all.
Yeah.
I even said that in the Discord this morning, because I was making my questions, because I've started to write a script ahead of time. We've got it in front of us, actually.
Yeah. He uses it. I don't.
Yeah, it's more for me and less for him. I more of pitch the balls, and then you swing at them.
It's like getting ready for a baseball game.
So I give you the softball questions, and then you pitch them out.
Yeah.
It's not really softball
not
questions. They are kind of softball though.
They are.
But so this morning I was coming up with some, and then
Yeah.
I wanted to see if you had any input on questions, and you didn't really. You were like, "Oh, I'll save my input
Yeah.
for later." So,
First question.
so that was kind of the first question. Now we're kind of going into my next discussion
What's your
point,
next
which
one?
is about the Jedi stuff, which I had mentioned in the Discord
Yeah.
that we would. I knew we were going to get into.
A rant?
I was expecting it. I'm expecting it, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of throw that in now.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and get this part out of the way now, which is, so we've discussed previously about how we feel about Jedi and as an order. They're not perfect.
Yeah.
They're not. you're less on the defensive team when it comes to Jedi. Like, you agree that they're not bad people, but
like my statement about them, I believe, is I don't think they try to hurt anything, but objectively speaking, they are dangerous to be around.
and you're the one that's more quick to point out. You're the J. Jonah Jameson to Jedi. You will point out their flaws before I will.
Yeah.
And I'll admit flaws when I see them too. And in this case, I think this is definitely showing us.
This is one of the ones where I was like,
there's not a lot of defense.
yeah. I was like, I've heard the same words before, but they don't actually.
Because this book shows why someone would fall to the dark side, and where the prequel Jedi Order had some students slip through the cracks.
Most of them didn't.
Most of them didn't, but it makes sense that
although most of them are dead now. So.
It would make sense though why
someone would,
because there's 10,000 of them around at this time, according to Kanan and Rebels. So that's a lot of Jedi. It also makes sense because all the Inquisitors, at least the ones we've seen, were ex-Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense that some people are going to fall through the cracks, because how else do you get these Inquisitors? Yeah. How else do you... And so the question is, why do they fall through the cracks? I personally place Iskat's fall as a 40-60 split on responsibility, with the Jedi being the 40. Because they kept some secrets from her out of fear, ironically, of what she'd do if she knew the truth. It's very ironic that they were fearful when that's like completely against one of their... they let fear guide them when they really shouldn't have. I think the key point of when they should have told Iskat the truth of her lineage, her mother, or at least the stuff they knew, should have been after the Pillar incident.
After the Pillar incident.
So when she actually...
I agree that they should have told her, but after the Pillar incident, I'm not sure about that one.
Because the Pillar incident, because I'd say the Pillar incident is the incident that shaped Iskat's future.
I have some thoughts about the Pillar incident as well, and I think... So how do you think it should have been handled? Let's get that out of the way first.
A lot more careful than it was.
Yeah?
Because I think the big issue is the Jedi failed to pay attention to the fact that after that incident, there was no trust with Iskat from any of her peers.
Yeah.
And I think the failure to acknowledge that loss of trust within her peers is where Iskat disconnected from the Jedi. And I think telling her the truth after that incident would have given her a chance to see that she had more choices outside the Jedi. Because throughout the story of Iskat, her fall really comes down to the fact that she doesn't feel like there's a home for her. And that there is no family.
Yeah.
Especially not within the Jedi. And she loses that family because she was starting to get a family with the Jedi, but then she killed the one person that trusted her.
Yeah.
And that's not her fault. It was a failure of a test, and unfortunately, her fear led to the Pillar incident, killing her one friend.
It didn't kill her, by the way.
Or injured her.
It like fucked her up.
That's right. Injured
bad.
her. That's right. And then she left the order because of that.
Yeah. And I think so. This is where I
it's been a minute since I.
So here's my thoughts. I was like, oh, a lot of people got hurt real bad, and they explicitly are like,
they kind of ignore the problem.
No, this is like direct action. This is what the book says they do.
Mm-hmm.
Admittedly, there might be some bias here because it is told from Iskat's perspective. However, I actually really like Iskat as a protagonist.
Yeah, oh no, wonderful protagonist. So, I don't agree with all of her actions, but great protagonist.
And the thing that I think that they should have done is I think they should have let Iskat see Tika after the Pillar incident.
Get a chance to talk to her.
Yeah.
That would have been a good...
At least apologize, because I'm like, even if she doesn't accept the apology, it's still something that should be done. Because I'm like, this to me, in regards to the Pillar incident, is the parent needs to explain to the child what they did wrong, but no one really explains why.
Yeah, no one explains why she lost control.
And also, it teaches Iskat accountability. But because Jedi are Jedi, and that's not how they do things, this is one of the ones where I'm like, a normal parent would probably address this.
And it's not entirely that Jedi don't do accountability, it's that they just misunderstood that this was a moment for that, and they misunderstood
because they think Iskat, like, the goal of the test, right, is to get the lightsaber down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what Iskat was trying to do. I don't think she meant to just yank the pillar off.
Yeah.
It's just one of those moments where I'm like, this was your grasp of the Force, this weird magic bullshit. The Force is cool, don't get me wrong. But
yeah.
By, like, disparaging it so thoroughly.
Yeah.
I think it was an accident. I don't think she meant to do it.
No. And so, like, I agree. I think they should have let her talk to
because
Tico.
I'm like, I've had situations like that where I was a child.
Yeah.
Not to where I, like, sent someone to the hospital. But, like,
You go too far with something.
Yeah. Like, me, Andrew, and there was a kid that used to roam around our neighborhood. We would beat the shit out of each other sometimes. And then it was like, alright, I need to go and address this because I am responsible. They might also have been responsible, but it's like, this is part of it.
Yeah, and just a part of growing up is somebody has to budge and say, hey, I went too far.
Yeah. And I think that's where my thoughts on the pillar incident are. And then everyone else being fucking scared of Iskat, I'm like, I get it. I understand.
It's the ostracizing that really angers me. And that's where I still think the 40%, because I think the fact that they don't address it to the other Padawans either, or at the
it doesn't seem like they do.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they do, especially since I forget her name, but like
Charlene?
Charlene, like the golden child Jedi.
Bitch. Fuck you, kid.
Because she's like the golden child.
She's a hater.
Yeah.
Towards Iskat. I mean that unironically.
And so, like, I think also, like, at that, so if they let her see Tika, I think they should also then present, like, Tika had the option to leave the order. I think Iskat should also have had that option. Like, that's why I think talking about her mother would have been important then. Because then you talk about it, you tell her, hey, maybe this just isn't, either this just isn't for you, or if you want to stay, we focus even harder on your training. Because this is what you did wrong.
This is we need to address this.
Yeah.
Like, now.
Yeah, so it's like, this is what you did wrong. We can train you to hone that in more, but you got to be open to what we tell you.
Yeah.
Or if you want to leave, your mother has done it before. Your mother was one of us. Here's the story. She had a similar moment of uncontrollable anger. She left. So you have that option. Because I think people forget that the Jedi allow the freedom to leave the order. Like,
you can leave.
It's also why they're not a cult, despite what some people on the internet would have you believe.
Most people just choose not to.
Yeah, like, and so, like, you can leave at any time.
Yeah.
From Padawan all the way to adult. Now, I understand the irresponsibility of a Padawan leaving. And that might be why a lot of people think it's still dumb. But at least in some examples that we've seen, Obi-Wan was willing to leave with Anakin if Anakin had chosen. So, like, Obi-Wan's like, look, you're not going to be without a parental figure. I will leave if you chose to leave. And I think there are certain people that, I mean, and in the case of Iskat, they would have probably told her exactly where her family was if she chose to leave in that situation.
Because it's not like, oh, we don't actually.
It's not we don't know where your family is, although we don't know where your mother is, but we know where your family, like your next close of kin.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, Semper knew, and then she died.
Yeah, but this would have been before Semper died, so this would have.
Yeah.
So, but I still think the 60 still falls on Iskat, as I still believe in personal responsibility. When it comes to, like, her fall to the dark side. Not the pillar incident.
So where do you think she fell?
Like, what was her moment? Like, her no going back moment?
Yeah.
I think it was when she betrayed,
Tulon?
Tulin, yeah.
For me, it's not that.
Although, it could have been earlier, but I think that, for me, that's a big moment.
I think for me, it's the immediate like execution of Hizo.
Oh yeah.
To me, I'm like, oh yeah, no, that one, like, don't get me wrong, the guy was a spy and he did betray you pretty hard to the not
which
president.
also such an obvious spy. Like,
Yeah.
Once again, I love Delilah S. Dawson's writing, but to me that was like the most obvious of twists. Like, as soon as he was introduced, I was like, "You work for Palpatine, don't you?"
Yeah.
But I did the audiobook, and I feel like that might have helped.
helped.
Like, you can read tone a little bit easier in audio.
I was like, well. My brain was like, okay, seems a little unnecessary at this point.
But it's
The
also
most, like,
but it's also very dark side.
yeah,
Like, it's very dark side to betray somebody and that, like, to kill somebody like that.
the most like objective statement about someone dying seems a little unnecessary at this point.
But Tualin, I feel like for me is the turning point, because I think that's when she betrays someone that she's intimately close to. And she leaves him to die.
Yeah.
Like, she straight up goes, yeah, I'd rather live, and instead of, like, potentially trying to take you to the dark side with me, I'm just gonna...
Fuck it.
You're gonna die.
Whatever, I guess.
And so, yeah, I think, similar to Anakin, when Anakin carries out, like, his actions that he does in Revenge of the Sith to become Vader,
Yeah.
I think Iskat's the same here. Like, this is her personal responsibility. I think there are, like we were saying earlier, I think that Iskat is a fantastic, like, protagonist, but there are definitely things that, like, make her a bad guy.
Yeah.
And are things that are like, I would not have done that in your situation. I can understand why your line of thought went there. I don't think it's the right thing to do, though, still. And I think that makes a compelling character.
Yeah.
So, because I think people forget that a good character, narratively, does not have to be a good character morally.
Yeah. You gotta separate the two.
And I think in this case, Iskat's a good character narratively.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I was like, oh, well, this is a little bit bullshit, is people freaking out on Geonosis towards Iskat. I was like,
yeah, because
this seems really uncalled for.
Because you're in a war zone.
Yeah.
Now, I think the blowing up, the second mission she does, I understand that one.
I understand that one from both sides.
Yeah.
Of the argument for that. The one on Geonosis, I'm like, why are you giving her shit now? This isn't the time for this. And secondly, fuck you. You froze up. All of you would have been dead.
Yeah.
So shut the fuck up or learn how to fight.
And some of them even admit, oh yeah, we would have died if she wasn't there. So that makes it even more so that...
I'm like, really? Because I was like, oh, that's not like Darkseid or anything. She's just good at fucking people up.
Now, you could argue that it's a little bit Darkseid, though, because of where she's pulling that type of force from.
The thing is, I understand, like, it's addictive, like the Darkseid, but I'm also like, you know, compared to a lot of other shit I've seen it used for, this is mild.
Yeah, and like, it becomes the argument of, should the Jedi have been involved with the war to begin with? And, of course, I can't make that argument, because I am pro what Revan did with Mandalorian Wars.
So,
except for the ending of it. I'm not pro the Sith parts when he started going a little too far.
Yeah.
But
I'm like,
so I can't really entirely put myself into that argument. Because, like, on one end, I do disagree that the Jedi should have been involved entirely, but I also, on the other end, I'm like, what would have happened? It would have been worse if they weren't part of it.
Yeah. It's like, they did the thing that they always do. They seesaw.
Yeah. And it's like, realistic, ideally, you would want the Jedi to be kind of negotiating both sides.
Yeah.
But the Jedi of this era, the fall of the Jedi era, as it's been dubbed now.
Yeah.
They are too connected. Yeah, they're too entwined with the Republic, and therefore it would not be a fair. They wouldn't be a fair parlay for both sides, because they wouldn't be able to objectively view both sides.
Mm.
It also doesn't help that they're being played on both sides
Yep.
by the Sith, because the Sith are playing both sides.
Yep. Like,
it's that meme of Palpatine where it's the Pixar short of Gerald playing chess, and then people are like, "That's Palpatine
Yeah.
with the Republican CIS." Yeah, that's exactly.
also, I'm like, okay, I understand, like, the mission on Thule went really bad.
Yeah, it went
But
about
also-
honestly almost about as bad as it could have.
Yeah. And I'm like, you could have read just a little bit more Iskat, but I understand why you would do that at that moment. Because it's like, it's like, to me, the Jedi don't trust her enough, and they don't give her enough freedom to act.
And it goes back to what we were talking about
Yeah.
with the pillar incident of just nobody did what they should have after that
Yeah.
incident, and therefore we've now had 10 extra years on top of that.
Yeah.
Of just like nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
And but also when people do talk about it, it's always in a bad light, and nobody wants to like address the solutions that.
Yeah. How do you feel, because we don't get a lot of time on it, the relationship about Sember and Iskat, their master apprentice deal?
It's almost a
'Cause-
reflection of Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Because to me, it reads more like a negligent parent.
It almost reads like it's almost a mirror of Obi-Wan and Anakin's, though,
Mm.
because very similar to Obi-Wan and Anakin, Obi-Wan was kind of handed Anakin.
Yeah.
And was like, Qui-Gon was like, "It's my dying wish, you have to watch Anakin."
Yeah.
Like, he was just handed Anakin. Like, there was no, like, Obi-Wan didn't get input on it, really. And so Obi-Wan was like, "I gotta take responsibility for this kid, because it was the dying wish of my master." Sember kind of in a similar situation of, my best friend left me her kid. I guess I'm gonna watch her kid.
Yeah.
And I think that can... Whereas Obi-Wan kind of thrived and kind of made the best of it, Sember did not. And I don't entirely blame Sember for it. This was a shitty situation.
Mm.
Sember did not have really a choice in the matter. If Sember could have her choice, she would have been an archivist. She would have replaced Jocasta Nu. We know this information because Jocasta basically says that. Jocasta's like, yeah, she would have been in my position, and she's been training you to take my position. So, but of course, that type of training didn't work for Iskat.
Yeah.
And it's not, so I think it's a lack of care. I think Sember does care. I think it's just Sember was not equipped for what Iskat needed.
Yeah.
Sember wanted to train one way, but Iskat needed a different type of training and a different teacher. Arguably, Mace Windu would have been a better teacher for her.
Okay. Convince me.
He's the master of dueling.
Mm-hmm.
And also on top of that, like, I'm gonna feed into Legends stuff a bit. In Legends, and I think in they've recanonized it a little bit, but I don't have a source on that, so don't quote me on it.
All right.
He has found a way to kind of rework his anger and dark side into a light side tradition.
Okay.
And I think being able to control your emotions that way and kind of is what Iskat needs the most. I think Iskat needed somebody to train her on controlling her emotions, not just pushing them down and ignoring them.
Yeah.
And I think Sember wasn't equipped for that training.
Yeah, no. Didn't really seem like it.
And it's not,
like,
once again, it's not Sember. I'm not going to place too much blame on Sember. I think Sember should have tried to find somebody that could have helped her better. But I think Sember also felt the responsibility to be the one when really she didn't need to.
Okay.
That's my thought.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah, I think you might be leaning different in regards to Sember.
Yeah, no. I think, to be honest, really any other master probably
Yeah,
would have worked.
yeah. Like I picked Mace because he's like a top that I could think of somebody that could probably
Yeah.
deal with that. I find it funny that she almost tried to have Ponkrell be her master. That would have been good thing we avoided that.
You dodged a bullet there.
Although I guess it really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter
because she still fell to the dark side. She would have just done it faster if
she would have. These cats out here, dark side speed run 80%. Oh man!
And then pew pew, Dogma shoots her along with Ponkrell.
Oh, so, oh god, what was it? Mission on Thule.
Yes.
So
oof.
I understand like both sides of the argument. Like, hey, we tried hey, we really wanted you guys to just sneak in and get out.
Mm-hmm.
But Spider addresses like the lack of information. He's like, we can only do so much with what we've got.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's just war.
Yeah,
that's not even. I think that's a commentary on just war.
Yeah, and the weirdest part to me was like them being like, "Oh, we have civilian workers." I think wait a minute, what?
And I think
in the droid factory.
Yeah, and
I was like, why wouldn't you?
Because we know that
use droids to.
We also know
droids?
because we also know the Confederacy is not opposed to slavery.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. And they're like, oh, we wanted to like disable this, and we wanted to do it a certain way. And I'm like, okay, I understand all of those reasons. Counterpoint, shit went sideways immediately.
Yeah, I think there needed to be a discussion of. So I think the discussion point that they were trying to make is, yes, you stopped the threat, but I think what they were trying to tell her is you needed to find, if you were going to stop the threat, you needed to find a way to not endanger civilians in the process.
Yeah.
And yes, things happen. You have to be quick on your feet in that type of situation, but you should still try to find the optimal solution. And Iskat honestly did not. Like, she didn't take a second to think about her options, at least from how I read that scene. And that's why even Tuolin was like, yeah, you kind of fucked up.
To be honest, it more reads like, at least to me reading through it, it's more like you didn't do it in the exact manner that we wanted, so now we're being a little bitchy about it. I understand why.
Yeah.
However, I'm also like, she did think, and I was like, the book never describes, like, even with a single sentence, hey, there are people down there. And it's one of those things where I'm like, she's doing what she can with what she has. Alone, 2 Jedi are still just 2 Jedi.
Yeah. And this is also early in the war, though. So, like,
yeah.
This is
so
where the
a lot
Jedi...
of people lack experience.
And this is also where the Jedi are kind of still trying to toe the line between being soldiers and Jedi. Like, later in the war, the Jedi are full on like, okay, right, we're soldiers.
Yep.
But in the early parts, they're still trying to figure out their place in that. Yeah. Because it's like... Because we read about that in Brotherhood, where they were just like, are we Jedi? Are we soldiers? Are we peacekeepers? Are we...
What are we?
Yeah.
What tool do we best serve the Republic as?
Because we read that in Brotherhood. Like, that was one of the main issues in Brotherhood is, like, what are we? And we see that issue coming up again with this because we get a lot of the early war. And then we jump ahead because Iskat gets the Ahsoka treatment of you're not allowed on the battlefield until you've learned your lesson. Although Ahsoka got through with her sentence a lot faster. Iskat missed most of the war.
2 years, and I was like, that seems like a lot of time
to reflect.
I was like, maybe like 3 or 4 months, like tops, is about the amount of time I would figure.
But I think it was also it wasn't a we time this situation. It was we're just gonna sentence you until we think you've learned your
Yeah.
So
I'm like, another thing is like at a certain point, the like, rejoice for they are one with the Force. At a certain point, the words that left my mouth were, spare me your fucking platitudes.
Like,
because it's one thing to say it, and I imagine, like, understand it. I'm like, really? Right now?
Yeah.
While we're fucking fighting?
Yeah, it's
You want to tell me that now?
like, I think at the same time, though, in that situation, you do have to kind of let your grief go because you can't get caught up in that, especially
there's,
in
like, an objective reason. It's the rejoice part
yeah.
that's like, okay,
We can rejoice at
you
later.
rejoice later, but also,
Right.
objectively speaking, in terms of, like, that's not what someone wants to hear.
Yeah.
It's like, spare me your fucking platitudes.
It's almost like
sorry, man.
It's almost like a thoughts and prayers
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, and I'm like, shut the fuck up. Because that doesn't
Yeah, it doesn't help.
actually help,
Like, I get that you're trying to be nice and helpful.
but it's not.
Yeah. Just say well wishes. That's gets the same thing out
Like,
without being pretentious.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah. All
But Jedi don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Because
religion.
Because they're a religious order.
and not an entire like that's not the entirely shit on that type of thought because
No,
religions can be useful,
It's not
but in this case, not
it's
useful.
Not.
In this case, not useful.
Yeah. So
But yeah, and so like one of the things I really like about this book, though, let's go back to some positives. And that's not to say that these aren't positives. These are just observations about the Jedi and how they operate.
I'm a bit harsh to them.
Going to a more positive
Yeah.
on the narrative, though, I like the tie-ins.
Mm.
Because as I'm listening to this, I start to be like, oh, that's a scene from Brotherhood. But because we get the graduation scene, and it's the same scene, but from Iskat's perspective. And I'm like, oh, we've seen this scene. Oh, what happens on this angle? Because now we're getting a different angle of it. And it's like, oh, what was happening over here? We also get kind of some... I think there's tie-in to another book. I know that there's definitely the tie-in to the Darth Vader comic. Over there, it's that one. Because the later parts are an adaptation to a degree of the Vader comics with Iskat's appearance, which at the time we didn't know her name. This is the big spoiler warning, I guess. When she fights Vader at the end, and because of the baby, that's all in the comic. The Eth Koth being a priest now, which is, I guess that makes sense as a go-to for a Jedi. Yeah, although he had already left the Order before Order 66 went down. He had already been like, I'm out.
Nope.
Because even before Order 66, he was like, I'm going to live the life of a priest, except I'm going to get to have a baby, because I'm done being celibate. Although Jedi are not celibate.
No, you don't have to be celibate as a Jedi.
In fact, it's kind of approved to kind of just be a man whore. Rel Avaros? Elzar man? Man hoeing is approved.
Brought to you by the Jedi Order. This generation's man whore. God damn it.
I kind of want to see Yoda's hoe face. Probably when he was probably back when he was 100, right?
Oh yeah. Oh god. So,
but yeah. Do we want to go into the serious thing since we're getting to like getting closer to the end of the book stuff? So eventually she does find her family after going through Order 66, switching sides to be an Inquisitor. She's still, even in the Inquisitor ship, she does not quite find her place.
Yeah.
Which is also like part of her journey.
I think, you know what I think would have helped Iskat? If she had like a 10-minute rant to like any other Jedi.
Yeah.
Like, just let her rant for like 10 minutes every now and then, and things will probably be fine.
We've talked about this. The Jedi have like actual like psychiatrists. Like they're set up for the situation, but nobody uses them.
It's like, oh, do you think they have like that as like find text in the back of like a catalog in their library.
Like, I don't know what's going on here at the Jedi Order, especially during this
Maybe
era
they-
where nobody
No
decides
one
to go to
was-
therapy.
They decided we're cutting the funding from this department because no one uses it.
I get, like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Therapy's there, and like, I don't. As far as we know, we don't really hear a lot about healthcare costing much in Star Wars.
Yeah.
So they probably have free healthcare. So like, therapy's free, man.
Oh man.
Oh man. But like, so yeah. So she still doesn't find her place within the Inquisitorship. So like, she realizes that she might have made the wrong choice still, but she doesn't. She doesn't walk away from it, even
Nope.
with this knowledge of I made the wrong choice. In fact, she doubles down. Probably even triples down,
Yeah.
arguably. And so, even after, like, Seven Sister fucks her up that one night.
Yeah.
Because Seven Sister's like, fuck you. I'm going to send my droids after you while you're sleeping.
Yeah. I was like, I understand why you did it, but bitch, move.
Yeah, Seven Sister is not great.
Yeah.
Although the only good thing is she's voiced by Buffy in Rebels. So, which is very funny when you consider that Kanan is voiced by Freddie, you know, and their husband and wife in real life.
Oh man.
So, yeah.
So,
but yes, going into, once again, trigger warning, we're about to bring up some very serious things regarding suicide. It's a serious moment in the book. But for those of y'all, I understand if y'all don't want to stick around for that part, or I guess I'll use the spoiler warning button to kind of let y'all know that we're talking about it, and then when we get done with it, I'll remove it. So if y'all want to mute us, that's fine. We understand, because not everybody's equipped to deal with that.
all right.
So we find out that her mom killed herself.
Yeah.
Because she finally goes home. She gets to meet her grandmother after a little bit of miscommunication because she doesn't know the language.
Yeah.
Thankfully, she brought one of the droids, the Imperial droids, to kind of translate. That's a thankful or not thankful situation, depending on how you want to read it. Because the Imperial droid is very much a murder bot throughout the whole time.
Like, please let me kill them.
So we learn a bit about the culture.
Yeah.
And they're just simple farm, like it's very simple agricultural lifestyle.
Yeah.
No space travel.
Nothing.
And non-violent. It's very peaceful.
Yeah.
So it threw me off.
Yeah.
Because I was expecting some big twist reveal that, oh, she comes from a very violent race and that's why the Jedi have been like very secretive about it. But no. Very peaceful, and so something went wrong with her mom, and we learned that a lot of it has to do with she fell in love, but then she wanted out of the order, and we don't get all the details.
No, we don't.
But we learned that she was not happy in the Jedi Order, and we learned that Iskat grew up for the first few years with her family, because her mom had
One
her.
or two.
Yeah, like her mom had her and then went to be a Jedi. We don't know who the dad is or if he's alive, because it's very matriarchal society. So like your clan is led by the head female member of the house. So in this case, it's his cat's grandmother. And the story is very it's very sad. And it's a very classic, almost classic tragedy.
Like, they basically tell her, they're like, yeah, she went off into the desert, and we haven't seen her since.
Yeah, because basically we learn that it's a story of depression.
Yeah.
Because
Clefan, like, gives, like, the final, like, yeah, she died for real. She went out to the desert and
killed herself. Because we learned that when she comes back from the Jedi Order, it doesn't make her feel better.
Yeah.
She is still hurt from whatever happened. Because once again, we never really learn what really, like, we know something happened at the Jedi, but we never really get a full answer on that.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine in this case. I think the story is not about what happened. It's what happened after. And we learn that she's just depressed because like all the signs are there. She's emotionally detached from her family when she gets home. She's crying on like just on random intervals.
Heavy substance abuse.
Yeah, like all the signs of depression are just there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, she's unable to get the help she needs. And what happens
Yeah.
happens. And
I'm gonna be real with you for a sec. I thought it's very strange because, like, despite the warning and everything, I don't know, maybe I'm just emotionally separated from this.
mhm.
I thought it was going to be worse.
I mean, I think it's still bad.
Like, don't get me wrong, objectively speaking,
Yeah.
don't kill yourself, please. There are
Yeah,
people will
for
help
those
you.
for those of y'all dealing with this situation, if y'all are listening and didn't mute for the trigger warning, please seek whatever help. Like, seek whatever help you can. It's a serious issue. I think even at the beginning of the book, when they give the trigger
Yeah.
warning, they actually lay out some places you can go.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I don't have those contacts, but off the top, like I can't remember, but definitely do seek help because people do care.
Yeah. As much as you might think or believe that they don't, people do care. They will listen when you need them to, but you have to let them know. Because inaction will get you killed.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's bad enough to warrant the. I mean, it exists in this in
Yeah.
the plot, so therefore it warrants the warning. And on top of that, I think it's still very important to see this moment
Yeah.
and understand it because it's a heavy part of Iskat's journey. And I think without it, Iskat's journey doesn't end up where it does because I think by the end of it, Iskat tries to pull away from the dark side. And I think this is one of the. While it's not the moment that causes her to do it, it's the start.
Yeah.
Of that. Like she starts to get that doubt that she made the right choice in this moment. Because she realizes that while her journey is not entirely the same as her mother's, she will likely end up in a same situation by the end of it if she continues the path she's doing. It's why she immediately was like, I'm probably going to leave when she tells her family, I'm going to leave when I can, but right now I can't because you'd be at risk.
Yeah. It's one of those situations where it's like, it would be more, as nice as this all is, it's one of those situations where, like, the protagonist, like, this is a nice, peaceful place, ergo, I cannot stay here. I will bring the problems with me if I stay here.
Because we know what the Empire does to nice places. It's not great. We can probably trigger warning done. Yeah, because I think I'm done talking about it. It's heavy, man. But yeah, she decides to leave her home because she would put it at risk. I mean, it's already on the Empire's map, and right now, thankfully, the Empire does not see a resource worth
going there because it's like out in wild space, which is fucking far.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't stopped the Empire before, but I mean, Lethal's not quite on wild space, but it's nearing it.
No, it's like at the border of it.
But Lothal also had a Jedi temple and mining resources that they could strip mine, and ruin the agricultural society that was at Lothal. Once again, the Empire just ruins whatever it touches.
Yeah.
And so that's why, once again, Iskat has to leave. Unfortunately, Iskat's journey does not end well.
Yeah, it doesn't.
She kind of finds her name. She becomes the 13th sister. But unfortunately, after that, we get the events of the Vader comic, where she butts heads with Vader in a way, and you do not butt heads with Vader.
Nope. It's not a thing you do.
So
If you like being alive.
yeah, if you like being alive.
Uh,
I like to think though that her homeworld does not get touched
yeah.
after she dies.
I think one of the moments of like solidifying, because at this point I already really like Iskat as protagonist, is the fact that she tries to pull a fast one on Vader when she's like introduced to the Inquisitors.
I like that. I like that it's canon that Vader has a cod piece, and that he wears essentially He wears a lightsaber resistant. Oh, what's cup? He wears a lightsaber resistant cup. I like that that's canon now. Because it's got
the fucking got no limbs.
Because its cat stabs him in the dick.
Yeah.
And he's like, that didn't do anything.
It was a nice try.
Nobody's thought to do that before.
Pretty creative, I gotta admit.
I like that Vader, in a way, respects her while disrespecting her.
Yeah.
But it's very Vader to do that.
Yeah, it's like...
It's very...
She's one of the few...
It's very Anakin, actually, if anything.
She's one of the few Inquisitors that, like, doesn't get any of her limbs cut off.
Because she got that respect.
Yeah. Like, generally speak, like, all Inquisitors fight Vader as, like, a rite of passage.
It's part of the right, yeah. And they are supposed to lose some sort of limb, once again, as a rite of passage, because the whole Sith mentality of pain and suffering. And if you lose a limb, then you fall further into the dark side. Because pain and suffering.
She throws Fifth Brother at this man because she's like, I don't give a fuck if this guy dies.
To be fair, nobody likes Fifth Brother.
Yeah.
I mean, we get that with Jedi battle scars, and we get that with Rebels, and now here. Nobody likes Fifth Brother.
It's like...
Nobody respects him either. No respect for Fifth Brother.
No, none.
To be fair, he's like the big ox of the group.
Yeah.
Like, he's just there to be the muscle. He's the muscle man.
Scat tried to stab Vader in the dick. It didn't work, and then he's like, I'm gonna fucking choke you out. I like how she's like, well, I'm fucking not gonna work against the choking bullshit, so random wires in the suit. Why don't more people do that? It's back to one of my things, like, does no one understand that you can't really...
I don't think everybody understands, though, Vader, like, is a machine, like, entirely.
Yeah, I know, but it's like the... Why are you grabbing at the air, man? That's not gonna do anything.
Yeah.
It's not like he went and put his hands around your neck.
So I guess
Well, he did, but he didn't.
So she dies at the end, unfortunately. Yeah. Overall, though, I think it was a great story. It's been a minute since I've rated something this high, but I will give this a 9.
Yeah, me too. I was debating it. I'm like, do I want to give it a 9 or a 10?
10 is very special, but it's almost there.
It's almost there.
So we recommend this book. Absolutely. Yeah. If you want a story about the dark side, you want a character that's very relatable, and you want...
I've never been more on the side of someone who I knew was objectively, like,
wrong,
morally wrong.
Yeah. It's very Walter White.
Yeah.
Except, honestly, I respect her more than him.
Yeah. Like, at no point do I think, like, oh, this is completely unreasonable. Most of the time, I'm like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get how this would happen.
And so, definitely check this book out. So thank you all for watching today's episode of Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I've been your host, Caleb. Be sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe to us. You can find us at Escape Reality Films on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and TikTok. You can also show your support for us by joining our Patreon, which is at Escape Reality Films. Shout out to Jennifer Brantley, who was in the chat. Yeah. There you can watch our YouTube content a week before it's publicly available, although currently, because I'm doing my Baldur's Gate 3 live streams, you can watch a month's worth of content on there at the moment. I've got a month's worth of content up on the Patreon, including a D&D game that I've been running, and there's going to be some more D&D content coming up there
in the future.
And that's and you can watch all that for $10 a month. You can also find me on Twitter at Escape Reality 94 and Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Caleb.Lockwood. Seth, you've got some plugs.
Yes. Every Sunday, you can check out our friends over at Trials of Naboo on the Steam Dungeon on YouTube from 5 to 7 Central Standard Time.
If you want to watch it live.
If you want to watch it live.
But
Afterwards, you can just
Yep.
check out the VOD.
Yep.
I will be able to join this week, and last week, man, I don't know who or how or why, but someone put out a hit on some of our party members.
Y'all
They
just,
were being thorough.
to be fair, like from what you've told me, y'all just make enemies.
I went and had a civil talk. This happened at the same time as I was telling them, hey, get your people in line.
Yeah.
So Simon has no idea what's going on. Although somebody did follow, has been like keep tailing him. I don't know what they're gonna do. But then again, who wants to fight a barbarian in their own house?
Yeah. Not great. Especially with that rage.
Yeah.
Uh,
So angry about it.
yeah. Once again, though, thank you all for watching. We'll see you all next week with Galactic Tail Shockwave. I have spoken.
Later.